Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rich Hill. I'm the mayor of the village of Round Lake Beach. This is our Fireside chat for September. Tonight we're honored to have Judge George Ortiz with us from the Lake County Circuit Court. Judge Ortiz is a resident judge of the 19th Circuit Court, 6th Sub-Circuit of Illinois. He was appointed by the Illinois Supreme Court on August 25, 2008, and retained by the voters in 2010. His current term expires in 2016. Ortiz is a well-known authority on child support and family law topics and has lectured for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Office of Child Support Enforcement, the Illinois State Bar Association, the Hispanic National Bar Association, Loyola University School of Law, and several other agencies. He also serves on the board of directors of the Illinois Judges Association, the Illinois Judges Foundation, and the Healthcare Foundation of Northern Lake County. He's a member of the Illinois State and Lake County Bar Associations. In October, he was presented with the inaugural Outstanding Jurist of the Year Award by the Illinois Family Support Enforcement Association. Ortiz is a graduate of St. Ignatius College Preparatory School and received an undergraduate degree in 1985 from Loyola University. He attended John Marshall Law School in 1989 and began his legal career as Lake County Assistant State's Attorney. Ortiz and his wife Meg have 2 adult daughters and reside up in Antioch. Judge Ortiz, welcome to Round Lake Beach.
Thank you very much. Good evening. It's great to be here.
Thank you. We have a panel tonight that's going to be asking us some questions and moderating. We have our Deputy Chief Mike Scott. If you want to introduce yourself.
Mike Scott, Deputy Chief of the Police Department.
Sorry.
Good evening, Mike Scott. I am the Deputy Chief with the Police Department.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. My name is Nanci Radford. I'm the Administrator of Lake County Teen Court.
I'm Shelby Slade, and I'm a teen court juror.
I'm Alex Barty, and I'm also a teen court juror.
Terrific. Thanks for being here tonight and helping us out with our fireside chat. And I believe we're ready for our questions.
Sure. Can you please give us a brief overview of the county's judicial makeup?
Well, we have 39 judges in Lake County. We have 12 lady judges. We have 24 associate judges who are appointed by the circuit judges. And we have a campus, of course, a juvenile court, the main courthouse in downtown Waukegan, and we have 3 branch courts, including, of course, the one located here in Round Lake Beach. In terms of the makeup of the racial makeup of the judges, we have 2 Hispanic judges, we have 1 Arab American judge. And Judge Bridges, our first African American judge, retired earlier this year in January.
Thank you.
In 2002, you were selected as the first Hispanic judge in Lake County. Today, you are the Chief Judge of the Civil Division of the 19th Judicial Court. Can you tell us how you rose to that position and what exactly is your current role?
Well, in 2002, I was appointed as an associate judge. I became a circuit judge in 2008. I'm the chief judge now of the entire 19th Judicial Circuit, and I was elected chief judge by my peers, by the other circuit judges. Previously, I served as presiding or supervising judge of the Civil Division and also supervising judge of the Family Division.
Judge Ortiz, what life experiences most prepared you for the role as Chief Judge?
Well, I would say it's a combination of things, personal and professional, I think. Certainly, I come from a family of 9 kids, so I'm used to having to deal with a lot of other people, right, and compromising. But in terms of preparation for becoming Chief Judge, I think a lot of it was the experience I've had as a judge. I'm about to begin my 15th year now as a judge, and again, having served as a supervising judge in 2 of our other divisions, having presided over very complex cases, and also having chaired some of the court's committees, for example, the Court Technology Committee, and having served on other court committees. I think a combination of all of that has helped prepare me to become Chief Judge. I would also say my experience practicing as an attorney, I practiced in virtually every courtroom in Lake County, and I prosecuted for some municipalities, and so I know what it's like to work in the branch courts and in juvenile court as well as in the main courthouse. You know, I think also my service in the community, I served on the boards of Mano a Mano and NICASA previously, and my involvement and work with all of our community stakeholders is very beneficial as I now serve as Chief Judge.
As the Chief Judge, are there any long-term or short-term goals you have regarding the judicial system?
Well, long-term goals are, we're in the middle of two major court construction projects. The Deputy Juvenile Justice Complex is being renovated, and it's actually an expansion there. There's a new building which is under construction, and it's sorely needed. Those of you who've had the opportunity to go out to juvenile court know that that facility is inadequate. In addition, there's a new criminal courts tower under construction in downtown Waukegan across the street from the main courthouse. And we hope that that will be finished in a manner that will meet the courts and the public's present as well as near-term future needs. So those are major projects that are underway. We're also working on a procurement for a new case management system for the court and our other justice partners, and that's a major technology upgrade that again we need. And so I'm working with the county board and our other justice partners to hopefully bring those projects to fruition. Short term, you know, we strive on a daily basis to resolve cases expeditiously, to provide the people of Lake County the type of justice they deserve. And we are constantly evaluating how we serve our constituents. And we're called upon now, courts are called upon to do more and to do different things for example, we have so many more self-represented litigants today. And so in our law library, our Center for Self-Representation, we provide all sorts of forms and information for these folks so that they are able to adequately present their cases. We offer so much more mediation in an effort to help parties resolve their cases more quickly and much less expensively. And so we have volunteer mediation programs that are very successful. So those are just some of the types of things that we do, but on a daily basis, on a yearly basis, we look at how we serve people, and we look to tweak some of the services and programs that we offer.
You said there's more people representing themselves in court. Do you see a difference whether that's civil or criminal, or is it across the board?
It's primarily in civil, and I would say in family court, for example, in divorce court, there's been a significant increase in the number of self-represented litigants over the last few years. Also, we had the terrible foreclosure crisis, and there you would also see a significant number of self-represented litigants, and that's a very complicated type of case to handle. And so we instituted a foreclosure help desk staffed by volunteer attorneys. We started a foreclosure mediation program to help homeowners hopefully either work out a loan modification early on or to resolve their cases much more sooner than they would otherwise. So in those areas, in consumer collection cases, for example, you'll see a lot of self-represented litigants, a lot of in our eviction court as well. So, but primarily family court is where you see a significant number of self-represented litigants.
In communities such as Round Lake Beach, how can citizens, businesses, elected officials, and law enforcement contribute to the effectiveness of those improvements?
Well, I think being supportive, certainly, of the court is one way that the citizens and businesses and local governments can help us. Also, I think citizens should educate themselves more about our court system. And on our website, we provide a great amount of information and resources and links to other resources. And so people should avail themselves of that opportunity to learn about the court system and to take advantage of those resources that are out there.
Procedural justice is a phrase that is being used more and more. Can you explain what procedural justice is and what is the court's responsibility?
Well, in essence, what procedural justice, when we talk about procedural due process, is really affording someone the opportunity to be heard, to have a fair hearing according to law. But procedural justice in the more popular sense now speaks to ensuring that everyone who appears before the court is treated with fairness and with dignity and respect. And that's something we strive to do, and the people deserve nothing less than that. But that's a big, there's a big movement surrounding procedural justice right now. And it's very interesting.
Thank you. Round Lake Beach is actually the first community to host teen court. In your opinion, what are the benefits of the teen court program?
Teen court is great. I was a teen court judge before I became a real judge. And yes, and it's a great program. It helps the students learn about the law and about our justice system. It also, of course, provides an opportunity for those who are in some trouble to have their cases resolved outside of the court system. I think it's a wonderful program. It also teaches, I think it teaches the lawyers, the student lawyers, how to think on their feet, right? It teaches them a lot of valuable skills that they will be able to apply as they move forward.
I think it's nice we have 2 teen court juror members here. And I don't know if they realize what part they take in some of the justice in this county at this beginning level. I don't know if they realize that they're involved in what we would term restorative justice.
Right.
What effectiveness do you see, whether it's teen court or the restorative justice, having on the judicial system or in the court system at all?
You know, coincidentally, we have a judicial training, in-house judicial training every year, and we're having our program this Friday, and we have 2 experts coming to speak to the judges about restorative justice. One is a judge in Cook County, Judge Colleen Sheehan, and the other is a priest in Chicago, Father Dave Kelly. And so I'm going to learn a lot more about restorative justice this Friday. But, you know, I think, first of all, anytime you're able to divert low-level types of offender cases, that's a good thing. And anytime you're able to divert young people from the criminal justice system, I think that's a good thing. In terms of restorative justice, I think that when you're able to bring people together, a perpetrator and victim, when you're able to achieve a reconciliation, that's always a good thing, because that's when healing can begin to occur. And so I think the more that we can do those types of things, I think it's very beneficial, obviously to those involved in the particular cases, but to the community as a whole.
Just a comment on teen court. We appreciate all my CASA's done to bring that to Round Lake Beach and the whole Round Lake area. As the judge was saying, it does make a big difference on how the kids react to it. You know, if I'm a parent, I tell my child, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. That's all they hear is don't do this, and they're like, blah, blah, blah. That's all they hear. But they have to sit down with their other students, their peers.
Right.
It's like, oh, maybe this really isn't cool doing this. And they can also see the impact they have on that victim more closely and better understand it. And like, hopefully it sinks in a lot more. And I think that's really what like CASA's been able to achieve with the teen court. And I thank you both for being serving on there.
That is so true, and that there is really something to be said for having that type of peer pressure. No question about it.
Many communities have established their own administrative adjudication process. In your opinion, what are the benefits of a local adjudication process versus the circuit court?
Well, I think one of the benefits is that there are certain types of cases or infractions that really don't require court time, or that really I don't think are necessarily appropriate for court. And I'll give an example: parking citations, certain ordinance violations, maybe minor building code violations. Certain types of infractions I think are better addressed administratively at the local level. That said, there are certain other types of infractions which really should be resolved in the court system.
Has the adjudication process freed up time in the courts so that they can use that time more effectively for more serious cases?
Well, certainly the administrative adjudication process has resulted in a decrease in filings of certain case filings for the court. So that's true. It would allow us to address other types of cases, or to shift some of our judges into other types of court calls. No question about that. There's been a decrease in ordinance violations and traffic violations that are filed in the circuit court.
Yeah, we found the adjudication process to be very helpful in Round Lake Beach, more so with building code violations, either whether it be just something simple like tall grass.
Right.
And generally the whole point behind adjudication, as far as we're concerned, is just getting compliance. Get this grass cut, get the window fixed, whatever that might be, rather than anything, civil penalties or criminal penalties. That's where the courts will handle it later on. And we've had a few that have had to escalate to that point because the people didn't want to take care of the little issues, and they turn into big issues. But generally, it's worked out very well for us to have the adjudication process for mostly building code, but also for parked cars and other issues like that that really aren't a moving violation or anything else like that that's endangering anyone per se, but it's still a nuisance for the community.
Right, absolutely. Yes.
Building off of Round Lake diverting cases to the adjudication process, can you explain or give examples of crimes that qualify for the adjudication process, and what criteria is used to determine a qualifying offense?
Okay. Well, as the mayor mentioned, there's certain types of infractions, building code violations, some nuisance type violations, which are appropriate for administrative adjudication. But then, anything you start getting into misdemeanors and certainly other types of more serious offenses, then those should be heard in the circuit court.
Ask a real quick follow-up question to that. I know not so much in Round Lake Beach because they do use the teen court system, but in some of the villages that aren't currently using teen court and they have the same adjudication process, and they'll send juveniles there for misdemeanor offenses. Is it appropriate for those administrative courts to then refer those youth to teen court from the administrative court?
Well, it depends on the type of violation or alleged violation.
A lot of them are drug and alcohol related, or
those should not be
retail theft.
Those should not be resolved at teen court.
Well, we get drug and alcohol cases.
If there's a fight at school, or there's something not egregious, not very serious, then that I think is appropriate. But if it's a serious, and you're talking about, I don't know if you're talking about open transportation of alcohol. I don't know if you're talking about.
No, but if you're looking at a village that only has the adjudication court or the administrative court, and they aren't currently using teen court, so they're sending the same cases that normally would come to teen court, then they're sending them to an administrative court. Would it be appropriate for them to then refer, or from the juvenile courts?
Depending upon the severity, those cases should either be referred to juvenile court. Sometimes those cases are diverted. But either juvenile court or in the circuit court is where I feel those types of cases should be handled.
Thank you.
Seems a little awkward to me that you would have juvenile cases being heard at adjudication, same place you have all the adults being heard. I would think that it would normally be separated so that you don't have the same audience listening to those issues.
Well, there is a new law that just went into effect recently, which creates a new type of violation. These are called civil law violations, and they pertain to possession of drug paraphernalia or possession of cannabis of up to 10 grams. And those are now, it's a new case type, and even if a juvenile receives a citation for those two types of violations, those cases can be heard in the branch court, for example, as opposed to in a closed setting at juvenile court. And that's part of the legislature's attempt to decriminalize marijuana and drug paraphernalia infractions.
Do you
One-
expect?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, do you expect to see much of a decline in cases coming to the circuit court because of that new law?
Well, those cases normally would have been, or previously were filed as either misdemeanors, or they can still be filed as ordinance violations. So I don't think we'll necessarily see a decrease, but they're just filed under a different category.
Thank you.
One theory behind community justice suggests that the court will return many cases back to the communities where harm occurred for resolution. Has there been any consideration or talks between the village and the courts to allow cases to be returned back to the village's adjudication process if they feel adjudication is more appropriate instead of dismissing a case?
I haven't had that kind of discussion with anyone.
Not really. Generally our police officers are the ones that write the tickets to begin with, and they make a decision based on the situation, how severe the criminal violation is, if it's criminal or if it's civil, and they'll make a decision whether it should be in adjudication or it should be in circuit court. I'm not aware of any cases that have actually been kicked from circuit court all the way down to the adjudication process.
Right.
The village spends quite a bit of officer staff time and money sending officers into Waukegan for bond hearings. Has there ever been any consideration of given to having bond hearings live streamed from the branch courts?
As a matter of fact, I created a committee, a working group earlier this year. Former Chief Hare is a member of this working group, along with Chief Gillette from Round Lake, and two other police chiefs, representatives from the state's attorney's office, the public defender's office, the court, the clerk of the circuit court, and private attorneys. And we're looking at this because some of the police departments located in the western part of the county do spend a lot of time transporting people to bond court. And so we've had discussions concerning whether it would be possible to have bond hearings by video from, for example, a police station out west. One of the concerns is that the defense attorneys and the public defenders feel that they should have access to their clients. They want to be able to speak to their clients in person right then and there. Another concern is that oftentimes when a judge releases someone on bond, instead of holding them in the jail, the judge imposes certain conditions, and many of those persons are supervised by the court's pretrial services division, and they're drug tested or tested for alcohol, or they have other conditions. And so what happens is they leave bond court and they go directly to the pretrial services department. So we wouldn't be able to do that if we had folks participating in bond hearings from remote locations. Another concern is that some folks expressed interest in having bond court in one of the branch courts. Well, that's not really feasible because we don't have holding cells in the branch courts, and then we'd have to open the branch courts on Saturdays and Sundays. You'd have to staff them, and you could still have the issue of transporting prisoners to downtown Waukegan. So we're still working, we're meeting, we're having those discussions, but we haven't made any final determination yet. I did remind all of the police departments, however, that they do have the authority to release certain offenders from their local police departments. They can release them on a signature bond there. And that said, there are certain types of offenses that require that the persons be taken to bond court. So for example, one that comes to mind is a domestic violence charge. Those persons are required to be taken to bond court. So it's a little complicated, but we do have a lot of folks meeting and working and discussing it and trying to work through these issues.
It's something that we've talked about quite a bit at the village here, and also our dispatch center is called CENTCOM. That's where we have our jails for the Round Lake area, and we keep a lot of prisoners there and transport them to Lake County. And that is very time consuming, you're right. Sometimes it's necessary, and I'm not sure if they'll ever come up with a way to prevent all those, but if we even cut them down in half, that'd be a great win for us and for the unfortunately the offenders also. It would be a win for them, not having to be all the way in Waukegan and trying to find a way back, or whatever the case might be from that point.
Right.
So we'll continue to work together, and hopefully we can come to a good resolution.
Yeah, we're working on it, and in fact, we have another meeting coming up in the next couple of weeks. But those are the types of issues that you have to work together on and discuss. And certainly, we take very seriously the concerns of the local police departments, and we really try to work with all of our stakeholders in order to serve the people in the best manner possible.
Since today's theme is court and administrative procedures, can you explain the process a business must go through when they have violated their liquor license by serving or selling alcohol to a minor? Is this handled through the adjudication process, or is there a separate venue?
Well, there are a couple of possibilities there. First, someone who sells alcohol to a minor can be charged criminally and would have to answer personally for that type of a violation. In addition, someone who, a business that sells liquor to a minor can have its liquor license suspended or revoked, or they could be fined by the local liquor commissioner, which is usually the mayor, or if it's in an unincorporated part of the county, then it's the county board chairman who's the liquor commissioner. So yes, so the mayor is also the liquor commissioner here in Round Lake Beach.
And we've done several hearings. When I first became mayor 15 years ago, we started working with different organizations to do more tests because we seemed to have a problem out there. And at one point we had 50% of our businesses sell to underage people, 50%. It was horrible. Nowadays when we do it, we get one once in a while, we might get one person that does it. It's usually a new employee that was going through the training. They have 90 days to complete the full training, the BASSET training, to learn how to really watch for underage people if somebody's drunk or whatever the case might be. And, but most businesses work very hard now to prevent that, to make sure that their staff is fully aware. A lot of them buy little readers. So they take a driver's license, they scan it, it'll pop up right on the reader if they're under 21. And the state's done a good job also as far as designated driver's licenses being turned vertical for the underage until you turn
Right.
21, then you get a new picture taken and they turn you horizontal and then you're good to go. So it's worked out very well. When we hold the hearings, a lot of times first offender fines are $500, sometimes they go to $750, occasionally it'll be $1,500 if it's happened more than once. A couple times we actually shut people down for 7 days. I've never had to revoke a license yet because as soon as we do the harder impacts, people really understand and listen and make corrections. And that's good for the community and it's good for their business.
Right.
That was all the questions we had prepared, Mayor, Your Honor.
Oh, Thank you.
Well, we appreciate you asking the questions. Are there any questions from the audience tonight?
I would have one question, Judge. You mentioned that there are mediations that go on through the court system. Can you explain some of those mediations, or what type of cases could possibly go to mediation?
Certainly. So in family court, for example, you'll oftentimes have self-represented litigants appear, and we have attorney mediators there every day, and we can send these folks right out to them, and they'll sit down and they'll work out their disputes, whether it's a child support dispute, a visitation dispute. They're able to resolve those cases to a high, with a high degree of success. Also, for example, if there is a, let's say there's an eviction matter, we'll have one of the lawyer mediators sit down with the landlord and the tenant. A lot of times the landlord just wants the person out and is willing to forego return of a security deposit, or sometimes they work out an agreement where the tenant is allowed to stay a little while longer. Virtually any type of dispute can be mediated. Now, those are our volunteer mediation programs. Those are free of charge to the parties, and they're very successful. You know, legal services, it's become expensive. A lot of people simply can't afford to hire an attorney, and so this is one way that we have addressed that issue. I mentioned earlier the foreclosure cases. Those cases, we have a fantastic mediation program. And then you have more traditional mediation where the parties who are represented will agree to submit their case to mediation with and oftentimes you can have a retired judge or a private attorney who serves as a mediator. Another thing that we do is, which is a form of mediation, of course, is the judges themselves have settlement conferences where they sit down with the parties and the lawyers and they try to resolve their matters. And we work very hard at that. The number of cases that actually go to trial, those numbers are very low compared to the overall number of cases filed. And that's because we work very proactively to try to settle cases. Because, you know, when the parties are able to come to an agreement, that's the best resolution, and also saves people time and money. And when it comes to family cases and children, those cases have to be resolved as soon as possible. It's just not healthy for children and families to live in that constant state of anxiety and stress.
And both many businesses nowadays using contracts instead of requiring to go back to the courts and sue somebody if somebody violates a contract, requiring mediation or arbitration right in the contract, because it is so much cheaper and so much smoother. And I'd probably say 80% of the time is able to settle a disagreement without having to go to court and spend time in court and the attorneys. And it's always a lot easier to sit down and talk about things than it is to go to court and have the judge decide. Nothing personal.
No, but you're right. That's something that's really happening in our society, where you look at credit card agreements. Now everyone has to go to arbitration, right? People are looking outside of the traditional legal marketplace, right, for alternative ways of resolving disputes, much less expensively, they hope.
Does anybody else have any other questions for the judge or mayor?
With the onslaught of all the foreclosures, what kind of impact did that have on the court? You mentioned that, how the court had to react to the slew of foreclosures and just how it came down on you guys. And how did you kind of deal with that and adapt to that?
We, before the foreclosure crisis hit, we had one judge who would hear foreclosure cases and other chancery types of cases. When the foreclosure crisis hit, we saw such a significant increase in the number of foreclosure matters filed that we now have 3 judges hearing foreclosure cases. And those cases take a long time to wind their way through the system, and they can be very complex. But that's one way we addressed it. And our judges are doing a phenomenal job. They're really bringing those cases down now. And the number of filings has decreased, fortunately. But we know also the impact that has on families who've lost their homes, the impact on communities where, real estate taxes aren't being paid or properties might not have been maintained. It's just a really tough, difficult impact on people. And so in Illinois, at the trial court level, we have two types of judges. We have circuit court judges who are elected by the people to 6-year terms, and then every 6 years you have to run for retention, and you have to garner at least 60% yes votes in order to be retained. According to the Illinois Constitution, circuit judges have the authority to appoint associate judges, and associate judges are appointed to 4-year terms by the circuit judges, and then they're up for reappointment every 4 years. They hear the same types of cases that the circuit judges hear. And so now we do have a vacancy. One of our judges is retiring. In fact, tomorrow is her last day. And so we have a vacancy. 28 attorneys have applied to become associate judges, and we will be interviewing them. The circuit judges will be interviewing all of the candidates soon, and then voting on the candidates. Those candidates are also screened by the Lake County Bar Association. If a circuit judge retires or otherwise left office during his or her term, then the Supreme Court would appoint someone to fill the vacancy until the next general election. And that's how I was an associate judge, and then one of our judges, Justice Mary Shostak, was appointed to the appellate court, and the Supreme Court then appointed me to her circuit judge position. That was in 2008, and then in 2010 I had to run, and I was elected in 2010.
Any other questions? Yeah. Yes.
Hello, Judge. My name is Stephanie. I represent Illinois for Parental Equality, and you were mentioning about procedural law and due process movement. And I'm wondering, with the ex parte hearings that you have in family court, is that something that's going to be considered with regard to taking on more of a due process and hearing both parties as opposed to hearing just one side of allegations?
Well, judges strive to be fair to both sides, and it is imperative that they hear both sides. And each party is entitled to be heard, to present his or her case. And so that goes to the very essence of what we as judges do, and of how we're supposed to do our jobs. So I'm not sure if I ever understood your question correctly, that there's a premise that some people are not being heard. I would respectfully disagree with that premise. Again, everyone who appears in court is entitled to his or her day in court, to present his or her case and to be heard. And I know certainly that our judges work very hard to do that.
Well, I think it's more on the ex parte basis, that it's an emergency hearing that's looking out for the children, obviously, and both parties are not there. For example, someone alleges domestic violence, and the other party doesn't have their opportunity to represent themselves in that hearing, and you're only hearing one side of allegations without really much documentation to show the supporting cause at the time, because you're not hearing both parties if one isn't present.
Oh, well, if someone, for example, if someone were to go to court and apply for an emergency order of protection, that's permissible, where the person petitioning, the petitioner, is the only party there most of the time. But if a judge does, and the judge can either grant an emergency order of protection or deny the request for an emergency order of protection, but continue the matter for hearing to a day when the other party will be there. And so an emergency order of protection is only a temporary, limited order, which with a duration of up to 14 days usually. Those are very, and you know, the ultimate decision, for example, on child custody is not made during a hearing for an emergency order of protection. Maybe temporary emergency custody, but that's without prejudice to the other party's right to come back into court to reopen even the emergency and to have everything heard, to present his or her side of the case. So again, you know, there might be a misunderstanding sometimes where, you know, someone thinks that, you know, the judge just heard one side and gave this person that order, and again, that could happen in an emergency order protection situation, but that's not really how, that's not how things normally work. Everyone is given the opportunity to come in. We require it. Due process requires that the person be served with a copy of the petition for order of protection, that they be served with a complaint, and that they then be given the opportunity to come into court to present his or her side of the case.
I've seen it very differently than that. So that's the reason that I was bringing it up, is that there is not that opportunity to hear when they're based on expert tape basis and they're not present.
Well,
and I'd like to see that there would be the opportunity for the other side to be heard at the time when those decisions are being made, because you're basically removing a parent out of the picture for much longer than 14 days, sometimes months or even years.
well, I'll tell you, in my experience as a judge, and I'm starting my 15th year now, that is not how the system works. It just simply isn't. And so I spent a lot of years in family court, by the way, and I ultimately became the presiding judge in our family division. And I can tell you that that's not how the system works. There's always going to be someone who's going to be unhappy with a judge's decision. I understand that. That comes with the territory, right? And we have to sometimes make difficult and unpopular decisions, but those decisions we must make. I'll tell you, I had cases where I was up all night thinking about them, switching custody from one parent to another. Those are very difficult, gut-wrenching cases at times. But those are cases that, you know, we take each case seriously, but especially when it comes to families and children, those are the ones that, and I spent all those years there hearing those cases, and they kept me up at night, but it was also a great honor and a privilege for me to help families, to help many families resolve their cases so that they could move forward, right? To help them come to an agreement. You know, one of the other things we did is, in 6 years ago in October, we opened the Family Visitation Center of Lake County. I chaired that committee that established the Visitation Center, and we had a real need for it because children were being exchanged for visitation purposes at fast food restaurants or at gas stations or at police stations. And these children and families were being traumatized by that. One spouse was frequently a victim of domestic violence, and the children were exposed to that as well. And so when we established this center, and it took years to be able to do this, but fortunately we were able to do it. We have specially trained social workers who supervise the exchanges of children for visitation purposes, and they also supervise visitation for some parents who need to be supervised during their visitation with children. So that's another example of how we work in Lake County, how we strive to better serve our children and families. And it's another example of an innovation that we brought to our family courts here.
Well, thank you.
So, okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Your Honor, thank you for your time. Ryan Rodriguez, Round Lake Beach Police Department. I think it's encouraging to hear you having gone from being a juror with teen court all the way to where you're at now. And I also think it's encouraging to see these two young people over here and hearing the contribution that they're giving to our community. I'd like to hear what words of encouragement would you offer to them to see that they follow the same path that you did, sir?
Well, thank you very much, by the way. You know, education is the key to success. There's no great mystery or secret, right? It's about receiving a good education, working hard. You have to work hard. You have to be committed to pursuing that education, and it's as simple as that. And you have to give back to your community, no matter where you end up. And you know, I didn't envision I would end up here, you know, and it's kind of funny how life is, right? But here I am, and so you have an opportunity. You have great potential. I can see it in you. You're already giving back to your community. Look at what you're doing. You're serving your peers who appear in teen court, but you're also helping your community as a whole, right? You're diverting cases from the regular justice system. You're helping people. You're serving your community in a very, very meaningful way. You're being leaders, right? And you are our leaders of tomorrow. You're already leaders now. So I just encourage you to continue to do what you're doing, to study hard and work hard. You have to do that. There are many, many great opportunities that await you, that await those who do the right thing, right? Who stay out of trouble, who are positive persons, right? You know, those are the types of things you have to continue to do. So I'm excited for you. You have a bright future.
And that's years ago, the Round Lake Area School District that started the Character Counts program over there, and I think that's had a big impact on a lot of the students growing up, understanding how vital character is to your self-esteem and to how other people view you. If you're going to say, I'm going to do this, or this is what I'm going to do, when you do something completely different, or you just ignore it, that's not person of their word, and
right.
that gets out, and eventually people will not give you the opportunities that you have had. And being a man of your word is very important, or a woman of your word.
Anyone else with any questions?
Great, well, we appreciate you all being here tonight. Our next Fireside Chat is going to be on Tuesday, October 18th at 6 p.m. 6:30 we'll actually start the program. I guess that night will be a couple of people with great knowledge about the housing programs throughout Lake County and how they can help the residents of Lake County and beyond to get housing and attain housing and keep their housing. Judge, thank you very much for being here tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. My pleasure. Thank you all for being here.